What's up, guys? You already know what's going on. My name is Andrew, and you're listening to Genuine Radio. Today, I'm here with my friend Maggie. Um, you want to introduce yourself a little bit for the guests?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Maggie Stillman. I am currently a freshman at Drexel University, and I was adopted from China when I was 1 by my parents, and then we moved to Philadelphia, and now we have been living in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and now I am here at Drexel.
That's cool. That's cool. I met you like about a month ago through one of our mutual friends, and I'm really glad I got to meet you because
Me
you're
too.
such a cool person. So unfortunately, this is another conversation that I don't really want to be having. Um, Surrounding what's been going on in America. But I guess it's one of those things that, we're disappointed in, but we're not surprised. America's had a lot of problems. And today we're going to be talking about the recent attacks and hatred over the past 7 months towards the Asian American community. Um, Personally, looking at everything that's been going on, like I said, I'm very disappointed, but I'm not surprised. It's very heartbreaking to see a community be attacked, a group of people be attacked just because of who they are. Um, and it honestly brings me to tears thinking about it. But Maggie, what are some of your thoughts on what's been going on recently?
So thank you for all that you were just saying. We really appreciate it. But basically, when all of this stuff was happening and kind of coming out, when like COVID happened and everyone was talking about how it started in China, and like I think that was one of like the big things that sparked this huge, like kind of like amplified version of like what's kind of we know that has been happening for a while in general,
Yeah.
but like this is just kind of I feel like the last straw that like made everyone snap, I guess. It kind of like
Hmm.
publicly, like now it's like a lot more public and a lot, at least it's like talked about more, I guess, which is
Yeah.
nice that like that. It just sucks that it was brought to that point in order for people to actually talk about it and actually pay attention and realize that it was happening. um I think that with our nation just being so divided over multiple different things, over the pandemic, over the presidency, over just everything, it's just like this is just another thing to divide us more, which is really really sad to think about.
Yeah.
But I think that with people like you and people just like who are bringing more awareness to the situation, you guys are helping tremendously, and I think that it is we are going to start moving in the right direction because
Hmm.
of all of this, and I think that that is a very important thing to talk about and think about.
Yes. Yes. I agree. As you mentioned, like this is something that's been going on for years. I remember even in history class that we were discussing attacks that have been taking place like in the 1900s, late 1900s. Um, and I feel like personally, I feel like I haven't really seen a lot of awareness about it, especially in the media. And it's only been like recently that it's been really circulated around the media. So definitely, I think, like you said, more conversations have to happen to bring awareness to what this community is going through. Because in order for something to change, people need to know there's a problem.
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
right. So I definitely hope more conversations are are had. So my next question to you would be, what would you say are some of the common misconceptions that people have about the Asian American community?
This is a great question because I
Thank
feel
you.
like there's a lot that like people know of, and then there are others that people just kind of like brush off and say like, oh, this isn't a misconception, that's just how it is. But like
Mhm.
I feel like since we haven't had so many conversations about this, it's kind of hard for people to really like see that these things are problems. So one of the ones I was thinking about was that a lot of people like people make mistakes obviously when trying to like meet new people and like try to keep everyone in like their kind of like radius like in like check, I guess, like knowing their names and their faces. It's hard, especially if you're like in a situation where you're meeting a lot of people at once, like maybe you're at a new job or something like that. But a lot of people um mix up other like different people of Asian descent. Like they think that they all look the same, or they get like the two only like Asian girls like mixed up in class. Like that happened to me so many times when I was in school. Well, I mean, I'm in school now, but like, you know, so
Yeah.
like in high school and middle school, like there would be one other Asian girl in my class, and the teacher would always mix us up. And I get like people make mistakes and people need to like, it's hard. They have like so many like students, but I feel like at the end of the day, you should really be making an effort like once you make the mistake once. But there were so many situations where it would just go on for the whole year. And I would try to like, because like also as like being in my position, it's kind of awkward to constantly be like, I'm Maggie, I'm not Sarah. Like that's not who, like we're different and we sit on opposite ends of the like classroom. Like at least try to make more of an effort, please. So it just puts us both in an awkward situation, and then everyone else in the class is like, that's not Sarah. And I'm like, ugh. It's like really awkward. So I feel like that's like a common misconception. Everyone thinks that we look the same when there are so many different like types of people. And this also leads into my next misconception, because everyone thinks that Asian means Chinese. Like Asia is like very large, obviously, if we've had any geography classes. It's very large. It involves India, it involves the Middle East, it involves like China, Japan. Like there are so many different countries in Asia. So that's like another common misconception. People are like, oh, all Asians look the same because they're all Chinese, or just because they have like this certain shaped eye, like they're Chinese. You know, like a lot of people just jump to those conclusions, and it's just like, it just puts us in an awkward situation, and it kind of makes you feel like you're not really seen as an individual. And I feel like that's like a big thing with like why all of this is happening, because everyone's like, oh, they're all Chinese, they're all the same, so they all like started coronavirus or like something like that. And then that's kind of where it stems from, I think. And like another common misconception, usually about older like Asian women, but like honestly any Asian person who may speak another language or have a an accent, everyone thinks that they're helpless, or like they can't speak English, or they can't like function as a normal American in America because they don't speak the language, or because they're not fluent. Like that's just wrong in general. Like anyone with an accent, like people will go over and be like, oh my gosh, British people with accents are so cool, but then an Asian person will have an accent and they'll be like, why don't you learn English? And it's like, okay, like I don't, like they're so different from each other. Like yeah, so those are like some common misconceptions that like I have like experienced and I've seen everywhere, and it's just kind of like disheartening, and it makes you feel like you don't have like, you're not a true individual.
That's very interesting that you mentioned that, because I had a similar conversation with one of my friends about the whole accent and language thing. So the United States has no official language, you know. Many people think it's English, but it's like, it's the United States. Like I think they did it on purpose to, you know, to like to, how do I explain it? To be more aware of everyone else's different backgrounds. But so often in our culture, we have people who are like, you don't speak English? What's wrong with you? Learn English. Go back to your country if you don't want to learn English. You have an accent, you're different. You're weird. Like when one of the points one of my friends brought up was like, if you have an accent or you speak another language, that means you're speaking two languages. You know, when the other person is telling you to speak English, only knows one language.
Who's
So
the one flexing now? The person who knows two languages, not the one
right,
who's saying you need to speak my language.
exactly, exactly. So it is just disheartening, and that's something that um, people who think that way have to change. We are the United States, and one of the ideals of this country is the diversity in culture and language and in people. So that definitely has to change. And the whole misconception you mentioned about how everyone thinks that Asian equates to only Chinese is wrong. No, it's
Mhm.
wrong. I think it's just because of a lack of education
Mhm.
and a lot of ignorance is part of it too. Um, like it's just wrong. There's like
Mhm.
so many countries in that region.
Yeah, I feel
It's
like I feel like a
yeah.
lot of people just try to use the shortcut of using Asian instead of saying Chinese to just sound, I don't know, like maybe less targeting. Like,
Mm,
I don't know. I feel like sometimes like people might just say Asian because that's just like what everyone thinks of like when they say Asian, like they think of Chinese, which
yeah.
is wrong because like there are so many other people within the Asian community just in
Hmm.
general because of obviously geography. Like Asia
Right.
is more than just China, but I think that some people just try to use the shortcut of using the word Asian to seem a little bit less like Chinese person,
Hmm.
I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So that definitely is also something that has to change. Like there's a lot. Like I feel as if that some people don't take the time to learn about other cultures. Maybe maybe it's because they haven't grown like up in a neighborhood where there are different people of different backgrounds. But I don't know. I feel like if you're curious about something, if you want to learn about another culture or another group of people, then you should take the initiative to learn about them. You not just jump to conclusions and make,
Mhm.
you know, misconceptions about them. That's very hurtful
Mhm.
to that group of people.
Yeah, I think it's very important for just like because I grew up like I said, I moved from Philadelphia when I was 5 into like to Westchester, and that is like
Mhm.
a predominantly like white community, but like there was still like different types of people there and all that stuff. But with the school that I went to, um like most of the Asian community that was like in my high school, like we were obviously spread around everywhere, like no one's all the same, but most people would talk about like, oh, the AP students or oh, like those really smart students, and they would
Mhm.
just either say that, which was like normal, but then other people would be like, oh yeah, like the Asian kids, like the nerdy kids, like
Yeah.
all of them. And it's like that's another like big misconception that I feel like more people can like actually like see in their schools and actually like
Mhm.
understand it, because that also is like wrong, and you can tell that those people aren't doing enough to like really, at least like the bare minimum of education is that just like no one is the same, like you don't even
Right.
have to know like anything about culture, anything about anything, like no one is like the exact same as like everyone else, so like that's just like ignorance at that point, not even
Mhm.
education. So they're just like being very ignorant to this group of people that like they're putting in a box when
Mhm.
that's like not correct.
Right. Right. Now that you mentioned that, I do. I have seen that in my high school. How people like equate, oh, like you're Asian, you got 5 AB classes, right? Like
Mhm.
that, like that.
Yeah.
Like when all like they might be a student who's in CP classes. Like
Mhm.
you,
And
it's
then those same people are probably like making jokes like, oh my gosh, like you need to tutor me in math, like you're good
right.
at math, right? When I'm like in science or something, and I'm like, I don't like math actually.
Yeah.
So no.
Hmm. Right. I think kind of going along off the whole misconception thing, and this is kind of going into our next thing as well, is I saw a post that was like, I think it was at a protest. It was like, um, love Asian people as much as you love our culture, and that Whoever
That
came up with that, I was like, yes.
exactly, yeah. That's like I've seen that like everywhere. I saw one where it was like love Asian people as much as you love our food. Like
Hmm.
love us as much as you love your food. Like our food. Like that is like so true because
Right.
that's just another like ignorance thing. Like you like something about a culture and you like utilize it in some way, or you like kind of like talk about how you love it, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, but all those like Asian people, they're all smart, or like, oh, if
Hmm.
you don't speak English, like you are helpless and you need to learn English. Like
Right.
it's just like, what, I just don't understand what the like line is. Like you like their objective things, and then you treat these people who are actually creating these things
Yeah.
like crap.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. It's very upsetting. Very, very upsetting. Especially over the few years, the past few years with the rise in interest in anime,
mhm,
too. Like you have people like I know of people who enjoy watching that content, but don't really, I don't want to say care, but like they don't really speak. Like I haven't seen anything about like them speaking out against what's been going on.
mhm,
There's no, like, you can't pick and choose what
mhm,
what you want. You have to like appreciate the culture, but also fight for it. You know,
mhm,
and when a particular group of people is going through something, you need to be there to support them.
mhm.
um,
And at the end of the day, like we're not asking for much. Like honestly, we're
yeah.
not asking you to like educate yourself and then like put yourself in the ringer and like do all this stuff. Like honestly, just if everyone is able to like educate themselves and educate their friends around them about everything, and just like that art, that alone can just like help so much more,
Hmm.
instead of like tearing everything down and just being like, no, like it doesn't exist, like Asian hate, that's not a thing, or like if it's happening, like if they're instigating it, like it's really not that hard to just like educate yourself and appreciate this culture. Like
Hmm.
there are different
Yeah.
cultures for a reason. Like it's not like everyone, it'd be so, life would be so boring.
Right, exactly, it would be. And I am glad that I grew up in an diverse neighborhood where I was able to experience a little bit of each culture.
Hmm.
I guess we were kind of getting into our next question, which is, um, in your opinion, how can allies, both allies of color and white allies, support the Asian American community?
Yeah, like I was saying, education is like the main first thing that I think should be done. Like at least, okay, well, maybe before educating, acknowledge that it's happening. Like
Yeah.
that's like the most important thing, because like nothing's gonna move on, nothing's gonna progress
Hmm.
without acknowledging that there's a problem and acknowledging what's happening. And like even if you might not see it, or you're not living through it, or you don't have friends that are living through it, like you're not, if you don't feel close to this situation at all, it's still important. And obviously if you don't feel like you're close to the situation, then like that is a layer of privilege that you like have.
Hmm.
Because like if you're not actually affected by it, like I'm not saying privilege is a bad thing, obviously, like that's the privilege that you have, so you should use that privilege to raise the voices of other people who are actually experiencing these hate crimes and everything that's going on. So if you acknowledge it and acknowledge that it's happening, put aside everything that like you thought before, and just focus on this one issue.
Hmm.
Educate yourself, educate your friends, educate everyone around you. Like if you hear someone say something that's like borderline like ignorant or borderline racist, like call them out. Like don't be
Hmm.
afraid to do that in like a way that is like you're doing the most that you can. If you feel like you're doing the most that you can, then that's all that like we're really asking. If you think
Right.
that you're doing enough, then like you're probably doing something like more than like the average person anyways. If you
Mhm.
feel like you're like, even if you're like calling someone out, you're definitely doing more than the average person,
Yeah.
which is already good. And then just moving on from like the education and stuff, like all of these, like, I mean, there was like a walk, there was like a protest. I missed it. I was really sad, but there was a protest going down Chestnut Street about like regarding like the Asian hate and all that stuff, and like going to things like that's also very important. Like there is power in numbers,
Yeah.
obviously. Like you're not going to feel comfortable doing something like that when you're alone, but if you have people to back you up, like that's why, like that's just what our community needs, because we
Right.
feel like we're so small. But then if we have like all these people to back us up, then we'll be like powering through, you know?
Exactly. Right.
And just be respectful to people. Like honestly, that's like the main thing. Like if you like it, you know, you're not the same as like your roommate, you're not the same as your sister, you're not the same as you're not the same as anyone. Like everyone is their own individual, so like you should just respect people for how they choose to live their lives, or how they were just like anything, like even just respect people in the way that you're you're supporting them for who they are,
Yeah.
whether they chose to be a certain way or whether they couldn't choose to be a certain way, or like just like respect each
Right.
other.
It's simple.
It's simple. It's really
Mhm.
simple enough. And like honestly, like being respectful, educating, like all of those things like take minimal effort. And
Right.
it's still helping our community.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Thank you for that. Those are very good things to remember. I remember like something you mentioned is you should do the most that you can. You know, some people have the resources to like organize a protest. You know, some people can get like, you know, hundreds of people together. Some people might not be able to do that. Some people, the most they could do is, I don't know, make educational TikToks.
Yeah,
And
exactly. And those help. They do
yeah,
help.
um, you know, so whatever it is that you can do in your power, do it, you know? For me right now, you know, I'm having a conversation.
Hmm.
Conversations go a long way, you know, and you know, this is gonna go out. Hopefully, someone will hear this who, you know, might have been a little ignorant in the past. They'll hear this and be like, okay,
Hmm.
maybe, you know, maybe I can change this or that, you know. So that's definitely important.
Yeah, it's definitely important to, like I said, acknowledge the situations that are happening and acknowledge what's going on internally. Like when you
Yes.
hear about the situation, what are your thoughts? What are your
Hmm.
initial thoughts? And then think about those initial thoughts and be like, was that racist, or am I thinking from the wrong perspective? Do I need to change my perspective or put myself in a different person's shoes? Like because some, like obviously people are gonna have their biases and stuff, and like they're not gonna try to be biased, but they're just gonna have them because of how they were raised, or because of
Right.
where, just like where they are, like maybe they're not surrounded by it. But like by acknowledging the situation and acknowledging your own biases, I feel like that's a very good first step to just
Hmm.
kind of like helping us and helping the communities.
Yes. Yes. For sure. For sure. And it's not a bad thing. You know, some people might, you know, feel ashamed. It's not, I mean, you could feel ashamed going like, be like, oh, this is how I was. But the important step is making the step to change, you
Mhm.
know. That's what's important. Um, and I don't know, for me, for my final thoughts, and then I'll ask you. I, like I mentioned before, I want everyone to know and remember that the Asian community is an important community. They go through stuff as well. I feel as if in the United States, you know, prior to what's been going on, they really had like a light hasn't really been shined on what they've been going through. And I'm sure like I'm sure there's been like many incidents prior to what's been going on recently, that are like aren't just they're not talked about, or they're not in the media. You know, racism, sadly, you know, each minority group in this country faces racism to some extent, and it's sad. It is sad, but you know, as we talked about today, there there are steps that we can take even to make a little bit of change. Like racism is not going to end overnight. It's been
Yeah.
with this country for years, decades.
Yeah.
It's not going to end overnight, but we can make a little bit of change each day, you know. So I want everyone to remember that in your daily lives. Try to educate yourselves. Try to educate others if you can, and yeah, just do what you can to make this country, this world, a better place. Maggie, any final thoughts?
Um, so I really like what you were saying with like just like educating yourself and like just obviously it's not going to change overnight, and obviously like you one person like can't change the whole system, but I think
Mhm.
that if you one person like just acknowledge everything and educate yourself and educate the people around you, like even if it's a small bubble of like small group of people, like that will still help tremendously. It's
Mhm.
like using your resources like now, even like I said earlier, it's like although it is really unfortunate that all of this stuff is happening now, I think that it was important for them to happen in order for people to talk about it and people to acknowledge it and people to actually realize that this has been a problem for a while, and
Yeah.
for a while it probably will be like in the future, but
Mhm.
like now that we're having conversations and now that we're having like posts on Instagram and TikTok and just like everywhere, like for like giving resources to supporting small businesses and supporting the Asian community and like common misconceptions. I've seen a lot of posts like that. Like I
Mhm.
think that we are definitely moving in the correct direction. But in order to continue to move in that direction, you need to kind of find it within yourself how you can help continue it. Because if you just acknowledge it once and then never talk about it again, that and if everyone did that, like everything would stop.
Yeah.
So it's just important to continue this education process and always staying up to date with like what's going on and just kind of like being socially aware of things
Mhm.
around you instead of just thinking about like things going on in your own life.
Right. Right. Yeah. Even if it's not affecting you, that doesn't mean you shouldn't not care about it. You
Exactly.
know.
Like at the end of the day, we're all sharing the planet, we're all here, we're all living
Right.
on the same like in the same areas. Like I don't know, you should just care about your neighbors, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And really
Exactly.
listen to them and support them, like no matter who they are.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. Um. Yeah. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, thanks
Thank
for
you,
having me.
Maggie.
This was so fun.
Of course, you're welcome back anytime, whatever. This is not like we don't focus on any specific topic. So, whatever you want to talk about, you're welcome to come back on the show.
Yay, sounds good.
Yeah, and thanks for everyone for viewing and listening. Um, yeah, I'll catch you guys next time.
Yay.